Well, welcome to day two of BRMS. Today is advanced topics, which means we got several topics for you, like networking and many other things on the table here. I'm joined by Sarah Jacob from Agile Technology Architects. She will be our presenter like she was yesterday or the other day. Looking forward to it again. I learned a few things yesterday, and I love one of the topics that we're talking about today is restore. I always tell people you don't have a good backup if you've never tested your restore, and I think Sarah's on the same page on that topic.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I give the same advice.
And as we go through today's session, please feel free to ask questions. We'll try to get to all of them. We didn't make it through all of them yesterday. If not, Sarah and I can work on getting you answers through of course, the good old thing called email. So with that said, Sarah, let's get started on to our next slide here, which is just basically us. I'm Tom Huntington, by the way, Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions at the Fortra company. I'm also an IBM champion for 2024. It's my 8th year of being an IBM champion. A lot of what I provide in the marketplace is the annual IBM I Marketplace study. The survey will be open again, and yes, some of you maybe have done it all 10 years already. We're asking you for our 11th year. Fill out the survey. It'll be open in mid-September through the end of October. The information is very valuable. IBM uses it. Steve will, Steve, Jesse Gerzinski, Tim Rowe, all that, on and on we could go. Use that survey, so please fill it out. That's me. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Tom. I am the Vice President of Customer Services at Agile Technology Architects. And basically what that means is that I am the one who's actually performing all the work on our customers for their system management. And then I'm kind of the primary backup and recovery specialist on our team as well. So let's go ahead and step forward here. This is our agenda for today. The first thing we're going to look at is that restore report. All right.
Yeah. So let me ask the polling question, though, Sarah. Let's ask that polling question. Yeah. All right. So we want to know how much experience you have with BRMS. More than 10 years, 6 to 10 years, 1 to 5 years, less than 1 year, none. We had this poll yesterday, and it was amazingly spread across the board on the number of years. So we're kind of curious to see what you all have here. And I'll leave it open for just a little bit more. Sarah, by the way, also speaks at Common, and one of the topics she does is BRMS at Common event, and hence that's how we've kind of hooked up over the years on this topic. And happy to bring her here to all of you through virtual webinars from Fortra. So exciting stuff. So let's see here where we're at. I'm gonna close this first polling question and share the results out. So it looks like more than 10 years. So we kind of expected we might get a little more advanced group here today with 32%. So more experience, 6 to 10, 21%, 1 to 5, 14%, less than 1 year, 20%, 12%. So 32% of you with less than 1 year with BRMS. All right, so we got some newbies with us too, Sarah. So back over to you, and let's get rolling on restoring.
Okay. Well, so for some of you, this might be duplicates, but we're going to go through it anyway. So the first thing we're going to look at is your restore report. Now, what that does is that is what tells you how to restore your system. Okay. There's a couple different types of restores you can do with BRMS. One is the little individual restores of a single object or something like that. Like, for example, if we look at my library on here, I have a save file, but my source file for all my programs is missing, and I need to get that back. So it's really easy on BRMS to get individual projects. So we're going to do work media information BRM, and the command here is work media IBRM. If you prompt it, you can see you can really kind of specify exactly what you want. If you just take the default, you'll get all of your BRMS database showing up. In this case, I'm just going to look at my own library. And sorry, my little screen's a little off here, and I want to look at only the most recent ones. So I'm going to say, let's go back to Sunday, just in case it didn't get any changes on it. Okay, and hit enter. And here are the two spots where my library was saved. So I can go to the most recent one, put a 9 on it to work with the saved objects. And there is my source file that was deleted. So I want to restore it. If I only want one member out of it, like say I'm only missing the source for a single program, I could try doing a 9. But in this case, the member level detail doesn't exist because back in that control group, there was that little section that said keep object detail. I didn't have that saved here. I just had library set detail. So I can't just restore a single member. I'm going to have to restore the whole library. Or the whole file, not library, sorry. So I'm going to put a 7 there to restore my object. It's going to say, okay, you want to restore it as is. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see F9 to do recovery defaults. You can say, okay, it's going to tell me, it's going to choose a device based on what I'm restoring from. So it's going to look at the tape that I'm going to get it back from and say, oh, this is the device we need to use. I normally come down here and I put, for object differences, I'll do compatible instead of all, or none, but that's entirely up to you. What you can do too then is here, if you're restoring your library, you just need the missing ones, you can do new or old, like these options here. So if my source library already existed and I just needed the members that were gone, I could do new. It would restore the library and just the members that were missing. In this case, my whole file is gone, so I'm going to keep that. If you need to restore it to a different library, like you want to restore it to a test library, so you're not actually affecting that main library, you can go ahead and change it here. You can change where you're going to put it from. You can see, are you going to restore the journal receivers that are part of it? All of those options are in here. And then, of course, if it is an encrypted file, you can make sure that it's got the key store here. All right, so I've got my requirements. Now here I can either press enter and it's going to have an interactive save. It's going to stay on this screen while it recovers that object for me. Or I can do, down here you see this F14 submit to batch. If I do F14, I can give it a job name. And then it's going to submit that restore job to batch. And there it is. It's restoring my source file right there. Now it's on a tape wait. It's going to go out. It's going to find the tape. It's going to bring it in. It's going to restore my file. And then it's going to say, okay, you're done. Okay. That's really nice to be able to use to restore single objects or a couple objects, whatever you need to do for the small amount, right? If you want to restore your whole system, you need the restore report or the recovery report. The way we get that is normally during BRMS maintenance, it's created and then we offload it to a different site and then we can pull it up. If you want to create a recovery report to look at right away online, you can do start recovery BRM. And you can choose if you want to do it for the whole system, so a system-wide one. Or you can choose your control group. So any of the control groups that you have, you could do a control group and then name that control group. So say you want to restore a specific save that you have, you can do it that way. And it will create the message for you, all the information for you that you need. In this case, we're going to create system. All right. Notice the action here is it defaults to report. If you are actually trying to restore the system, you would then change that over to restore. Okay, and then you can set a time and end date that you want if you want a specific window. In this case, I would just want full system report of everything. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. And I usually just take the defaults, but you can go down and you can look at specific things if you need to change that. And it's going to say, okay, it's going to generate my recovery reports now. Okay. it will get those files. I pull them out of the printed spool file information, and this is what the report's going to look like. So this is the full recovery report. You can have it default to open as a PDF or as a text file when you use your ACS, which is what I do. And it shows me everything I need to recover the entire system here. Now, this is what you're going to need if you want to restore the whole system. It's going to have information on here about what tapes you need and everything. So the other report that's important off of there is this volume recovery report. It's called QP1A2RCY. Okay, and it tells you exactly what tapes you need and where they're located in order to perform a full system save. Okay, now as I'm looking at this recovery report for this system, I'm going, well, I may have an issue here because I've got my first tape that I need is an LTO3, and the rest of them are all LTO6s. So I need to make sure I've got an LTO3 or 4 tape drive and an LTO6 or 7 available. Now with this system, I'm not worried about it because we have it connected to a VTL and I can just make it look like whatever I want it to look like, but that is something to be aware of in the event of a recovery. All right, so I'm gonna go back here and notice I've got a message here because my restore completed. Okay, I look at my library and there's my source file and all the members are there too. So everything came back and it was that easy. Okay. All right, so now if we're going to look at recovering your full system because you get a surprise recovery test, which are always fun, right? Not stress inducing at all. Your first thing is that you want to read the recovery report. Now, being that you have already set this up, you've got your recovery report offline or on another system, you can definitely look at it. This recovery report, like the one I just showed you, is going to guide you step by step through the entire process, okay? The main things you're going to need is a bare metal recovery IPL source, DVD, virtual DVD, USB, remote installation with NFS server. If you have that set up ahead of time, it's much, much faster. And you don't have to be physically there. We particularly set up our system so that we have multiple NFS servers for this purpose, but it depends on your environment if you have it. Most of our customers have a USB that they're going to do their recovery with. Okay. Factor in some time for your DASD recovery, but the basic steps are to load the license internal code and initialize your system, initialize the DASD, and then you're going to recover your license internal code. So that report I showed you, one of the lines on here, now this is obviously looking at it from on the 5250, right? I pulled up a recovery report through the system just to look at it rather than having a printed one to put on the slide for you. What it shows you here is the save sys. It shows you the date that it was last saved, and it shows you the volume number, and obviously a sequence number, which is going to be number 1. You select your language, the system boots to the external load source, and you'll install the license internal code using this menu that anyone who's built a system or recovered it should recognize. Okay, you choose 1, install the licensed internal code. You choose a load source. Obviously, this is an old screenshot, but the only thing that's really different is going to be the serial number, type, and model. Okay. To choose your load source, I, by standard, will choose the lowest controller number, just because that gives me an idea of any system I've built. I have a good idea where the load source is. When it comes to IBMI, it really doesn't matter which one it is. Okay, this is a full system recovery, so we're going to do a 2. You're going to install your license internal code and initialize. It wipes the system and runs more over there. So, sorry, I saw a hand up here, but I don't see what the question was. So Send it in the questions and we'll get to it at the end of the.
It was more of a comment. They said you're doing a great job. It feels like me presenting. So it was a compliment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And actually, there is a they're looking for a sample CL, so we'll talk about it later at the end.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right. So now you're getting your initialize going. You add the rest of the DASD into the system. Add all the drives unless you're using an ASP. All right. Do you need to balance the system? Not right now. You're in an emergency recovery kind of phase. You don't need to balance it right now. It'll just add more time on. Hit F10 to confirm. Go get some coffee. I used to say go take a nap, but with the new NVMe drives and SSD drives, they're a lot faster. You don't necessarily have time for a nap. Sometimes you do, depending on the size of your system, but it's a lot faster. We actually had one that initialized in 30 minutes when we were normally expecting it to take a couple hours. So next thing you're going to do is you're going to start your protection. We typically do RAID 5 with hot spare. Which protection you use is debated amongst some folks. Choose the one that works for your company and your system. Get another snack or a meal, maybe a little more coffee, right? It's going to be a long night. Once that's all initialized and your protection is started, you're going to load the operating system, okay? So from the dedicated service tool screen, you're going to choose option 2 to install the operating system. It starts loading from the media. It's smart enough to swap through all the images as needed. You don't have to sit there and flip DVDs like you did back in the day. Everything is done for you. If you do have a system old enough that you're swapping DVDs, we've got some other issues that we would have to deal with, right? Okay, so that's going to take care of itself. Now you're ready to get BRMS going because your operating system is loaded. Okay, you'll be able to log in, you'll have a login screen. You're not going to have a whole lot, but you'll have the operating system. So you're going to use this command here, which is written out in the recovery report as well. Restore lib, you're going to restore QBRM, you're going to use your device, you're going to use the volume ID right here, and your sequence number. Do use the sequence number, it's going to make it a lot faster so that your system doesn't have to run through the tapes and find it. And it's provided for you, so there's no reason not to use it. Get QMSE, Q1A, BRMS, F01. Once those libraries are loaded, now you're going to recover your Q user BRM library. And that's where you've got all your media information, all your last saves, all of that information in there, right? So you use that same command, restore lib, with the sequence number. It's got the volume identifier. If you notice on this page, the BRMS licensed program product and the BRMS latest information are actually on 2 different tapes. Because this was a weekly save and then a daily save. The daily save was on a different tape, and that's the most up-to-date information, okay? If you're using a tape library, it'll just automatically grab the right tape because you're putting the volume ID in there. Otherwise, if you're using just a drive, you might have to swap the tape. All right, so you recover the BRMS information, and then you move on to the next. From here, BRMS takes it. You run this start recovery BRM option system action restore. So remember how I showed you before that was the report? Now we're actually doing restore. It's going to bring you into this. It's going to show you this on the screen, exactly what you see in the green screen. And it's going to say put a 1 next to what you want to recover. You're going to put a 1 next to that, hit enter. It's going to go out, find it, do all the work for you, restore it. Then it's going to say, okay, let's do your configuration next. And what BRMS does is it pops up exactly what you're going to restore next on the screen, and it limits it so you only see what you're supposed to restore at that point in time. Okay. Then it'll show you your special libraries. To get that, you'll get the balance of your licensed program products next. And, you know, that's just a small list of what there is. And it's all going to be there, listed exactly what tape and what control group it was from. Once you get all of the LPPs and all of the IBM stuff on there, now you're going to do the balance of your user libraries. Okay. You just put a 1 next to everything you want to restore. So if there's anything you don't care about, You can ignore it here, but for the most part, you're just going to do a 1 down the line. I want to note here on, sorry about that. You see that second saved item there is a journal lib. That journal library has all of our journal receivers. So notice that it's the second library to be restored. So all of those receivers will be there ahead of time before the libraries come in. So that's just another little help to make things go a little easier as you're recovering with your journals. And then that's the last of it. It's going to run through that. Once it gets done with all of those restores, on the report, it's going to have a couple of steps depending on how your system's set up. Like if your system has this, now you have to do this. If your system had this, go ahead and do this. One of the last things it asks for is this little tiny command called restore authority. It doesn't really stand out in any way, but it's a really important step, okay? If you forget it, you're gonna regret it 2 days later. I know that because I've done it and I've had to go back, and it's really unfun to untangle, okay? So this report is easy enough that an average user, not even an IBM user, can actually follow this and restore a system, okay? I have on here a little note that says mom, because my dad and I, who I work with, had my mom take a BRMS report and restore a partition that we destroyed on purpose, just to test and see if it was really that easy. And she is a basic user. She knows enough about a computer to get around. She has heard some of the IBM words going as we've talked, but she's never actually used one. And she was able to successfully restore a partition just using the BRMS report. I like bringing that up to really reinforce how simple this report makes recoveries, because when you're in that situation and you're stressed and you have people breathing down your neck, having that simple, a monkey can follow it kind of report is really, really helpful. So just want to make sure everybody's aware that that's how simple it is. And that's all there is to restores. They're really, really simple with BRMS. So we're going to jump into doing a little bit more of the configuration that we talked about yesterday, about really kind of digging in and getting this system tuned for yours. And that starts with backup lists. So that's really how you narrow down what you're going to back up. Lists in BRMS define groups of objects that you're going to back up. You can do folder objects, spool files, and IFS objects, right? You can save your spool files incrementally, so you can only save them when a new one comes in or they've had a change to them. That'll save a little bit of space on your saves if you're saving your spool files. To get to the backup lists, it's go BRMS, option 2 to backup planning, and then option 5 to work with backup lists. The command to get there right away is work link BRM, WRKL BRM. So inside those lists, you can include or exclude objects within a major group. These are the ones provided by IBM. So it's all spool files, all user directories, all IBM directories, all journals, right? And then there's this QLink omit, that's a special object list. That allows you to exclude directories or files from the star link object. So when you have your control list and you got your IFS one where you're doing the star link to get all the IFS, if you want to exclude something from there, this is where you put it in there. So like those log files that have errors go in here. And that we'll get to there, or something that you're going to save at a later time goes all in here. Okay. So this is an older system that we have that just has a good demonstration of an error. This customer at the time had upgraded their software and the backup was failing as it was failing with errors, right? So we went to display log BRM. You put your cursor on the error and hit F4. The F4 is a throwback to the system 38 or 36, I can't remember which one. It's just one of the only things in IBM that hasn't been changed, but so you still have to use F4 in that log. I think that's the only one on the OS system that you use F4 to get more detail. So it shows you this object log and that it wasn't saved. And the reason was it couldn't open the object. It was in use. Makes sense, it's an error log, right? It might be tempting to ignore errors like this because you know they're not important. But if you do ignore these errors, instead of cleaning them up, it might actually make your system unrecoverable. So just as a note, don't ignore it just because it's something that you don't need. Okay. So now the first question is we look at the error and we say, is the object not making it to tape necessary for recovery? In this case, it's an error log file or an application. It's not really necessary for recovery purposes. So I'm not going to worry about it in this case. But if the answer is yes, you need to figure out what was using that process at the time, stop that process so that IBM can get a checkpoint on it to save the file, right? In order to stop BRMS from attempting to back it up because we've determined it's not necessary, we're going to put it in the Q-link omit list. Just bear in mind that anything in that list may be gone forever if you're not saving it somewhere else, okay? It's really easy. You just do a change link BRM with the list name, Q-link omit. You put the object name in there, put star omit instead of star include. In this case, I'm going to omit all error logs. So that's why I've got my little splat up there. Any file that starts with error is going to be omitted from the backup at this point. If you want to ignore the entire logs directory, you can just do logs. You don't need a splat. Okay. And that's all it takes. Now, BRMS is not going to try and back up that file anymore or that directory anymore. Some of the things that we typically back up are the performance data. If you were here yesterday, you saw me doing that as well. But only omit things you don't need for recovery, because once it's omitted, it means that BRMS isn't even going to try and back it up. Okay, you have to back it up at a different time. When you're running a backup, you can also say, well, normally on my daily backup, I want to process these omit. I don't want to save things, but I want to run this same control group on the weekend, but then these processes aren't running, so I can get all those things that I've omitted. Well, on your command, you can go to Start Backup BRM, scroll down and there's this omits line. You can change that to ignore. And on that command, when you run that specific command, it's going to ignore that omit list and save everything in that control group. Okay, so that's a good way to use if you want to use the same control group, or you just want to make sure that you're getting anything that was omitted accidentally over the weekend, right? So for our example today, we're going to create a list for a project or a special backup. In this case, we had a project, the customer had several points where they needed to run some overnight processing. Their IFS save took too long, and by the time that the IFS had gotten all its checkpoints, the batch processing had hit past their time when they were allowed to do it, right? So we needed to break up the IFS saves in order to allow this batch processing to occur. So we set up the breakpoints and created a list with each section that we needed. Okay, we put it before the star link in the control group with the new list, used our exit to allow the batch processing between the lists so that this section of the directory got saved and this part of batch processing, which needed those, could start while the backup moved on to the next section of the IFS to save. Okay. All right, so now for that, we're going to go into the system. I type my password correctly. All right. So go BRMS, backup planning, and lists. All right. So I've got a lot of lists here, actually. I've got some object lists. I've got some IFS lists, right? Some other reasons for this. So for this example, we're going to say we have an object we want to save before batch processing and a couple of different IFSs that we need to change, okay? So here I have a list called pre-process. And if I display it, it's literally just a data area for my library. It's included. It's the only thing that's part of this group. So it's the only thing that'll be saved. I'm saving it because my batch processing is going to change that data area. And I want to have a before and after copy of it just in case something happens. Right. Then I've got my IFSA list. If I display it, I can see I've got my Sarah and pre-process directory and a webinar directory that I'm going to save. Okay. The way you change that is to do it to, and then you can change it to omit or include these things. If you want to add something new, you do a plus down here, and you can go down and say any library that exists or any directory that exists, you can do and add it here. All right, so I'm going to include that. I'm not going to omit it. What I can do as well is on here, if I say in webinar, which I've included up top, I want to omit the logs. I can come down here and omit it. Okay, and now if I look at it again, now it's got webinar, it's included, and it's got the logs are omitted. So it'll grab everything in this directory except for the logs directory. Okay, it's that simple to make these and change them. Okay, then I take those and I go into my backup control group. So in this case, it's called backup 1. Let's show you here. So I've got my first thing that I save is going to be that object list, that data area, and I can put anything in there, any objects that I want to save, right? Then I'm going to save that first IFS list, my pre-process one. And then you see I've got an exit here, and I can go and I've got a batch program that's going to run using those directories while the control group is busy saving the balance of the user libraries. Okay. Once the user libraries are done, it's going to save that second list of the IFS. Okay. And then I've got another program, a batch program I'm going to call there, that's going to run using the directories that are in that second list while I do the balance of the, sorry about that, while I do the balance of the rest of the save, of the rest of the IFS. Okay, so here's the rest of the IFS getting saved. So my batch processing can happen while the backup is still running. So if you have a long running backup and you need to do batch at the same time, this is kind of how you can really narrow it down. You can also set up a backup to just use those little bits of it. Like here, this control group here, it goes to a save file. This is our monitoring program that we have. We're just going to save this ATA list because that's how we're going to transport it between our partitions. That's some software that we've built at Agile, right? We've got another one. This is PTFs. All it is the PTF files that I've got on this system. I'm saving them to a tape so that I can transport it for customer with some security difficulties, right? It's that simple, so you can make your backups with these lists as complex or as easy as you want them to be. So the only other thing you have to do when you check that is, so here we have this Sarah pre-process, webinar, Tom webinar, right? Those three are all getting saved up here. I want to make sure that in my QLink omit, those exist in here, and they don't. So what's going to happen here in that backup control group I showed you is that we're going to save those directories. We're going to start our batch processing. And then because we forgot to put our omits in, it's going to try and save those directories again. So we need to change it here. So we're going to do a 2 to change. All right. So the file was Sarah pre-process. and we're gonna do an omit. And webinar, right? And we're gonna do omit. Now, because there was that one file in there that we excluded, if I want to keep those logs and not have them disappear forever, I got to make sure I put them on an include here as well, because this way it's going to omit the entire directory. So I got to step in and add that there. Okay. My screen's just slightly off, so things look a little different. All right, so now that's on my list and it's all set. Now it won't try to save those directories a second time. All right. So the next thing to go through after lists is of one of the more advanced topics is a popular one is networking with BRMS. Okay. When we have multiple systems, it's nice to be able to use a single scratch pool of tapes. And that's what BRMS networking allows you to do. Okay. If you have your tape library virtualized, you can even share a tape library and the tapes amongst multiple systems. Okay. On the old licensing, it's a separate feature that you'd have to pay extra for. With the subscription-based BRMS, network and advanced features are both included in BRMS now, so that you get it. If you get BRMS, you automatically have networking. Okay. You can create a single set of your policies and share them across all your partitions. You can pull recovery reports from other partitions. So when you print your recovery reports, if you wanted to, because your other systems are really busy, they're utilizing all their processing power and you don't want to take away from it. You can have one partition be the one that's going to go and say, okay, I want my recovery reports from all these systems, and then I'm going to take the time to offload them. So it's really helpful in that way too. So setting up BRMS, one of the first things you need to do is set up the communications. You need to verify it. It uses secure DDM. You can use insecure if you really want to. I don't recommend it, but that's, you know, between you and your auditors, right? So these are the commands you would use to set that up. You would run this on each of the different partitions that you want to be part of the network. You want to create a user profile that's going to be in control of BRMS, that's going to own all the backups and all the backup communications. You don't want to use QBRMS as that user profile. That's just going to cause some problems. So I always create a user profile called backup. It has QBRMS as its group profile. It has used to create DDMF, and it has just enough authority to run the backups and own them, but it can't log on. It can't be used for anything else, right? So I have it restricted in that way. All right. Then you're going to check your communications. You're going to add the user authority in there. Make sure that remote system password matches, right? And then you're going to use the initialize BRM option of secure DDM. Okay, and you're going to remove secure DDM and then restart it. Okay. These steps, if you use DDM for anything else, make sure no one else is using it before you end and restart it. That can cause some issues that you weren't intending, right? So once you've got that done and all the communications are good, you go to the system policy, right? So 11, option 1, and then option 4, the change network group. That's where you set up your networking. Okay. Your communication method, you can specify how you want your systems to communicate, or you can just use star available and BRMS will go out and look at how it can communicate and choose from there. Okay. IBM has extremely clear instructions on setting it up at that link there. Fortra has a lot of great documentation on setting up your network there. You can go through, they've got questions, different things that you need to do. It's all right there, step by step, to go through and do it. Okay, so essentially though, what you're going to do is you're going to save Q user BRM on both systems, save it to a save file. You don't need to bother with the tape because you can erase it once the BRMS is up and running. You make sure no saves or maintenance are currently running on the systems that you want to network. You go into that network groups one that I showed you. You do a 1 to add the system name on the option field. And then you put your remote location in. So this is, say this is system A, you enter system B here, press enter, BRMS is going to go out, look, make sure it can communicate. If communication's all good, it's going to add it as an inactive system. If there's a problem with the communication, then it's going to throw a bunch of errors and it's not going to look for you. On system B, so once that's added on the network group, you're going to go to system B, you're going to check for media. Unless this is a brand new partition, you're likely going to have some sort of media information there. You're going to copy it to a file. You don't have to get any, more detailed than that. Initialize your BRM with star netsys. That's going to from system A, and that is going to have BRMS go, oh, I'm networking now, and it's going to build all the things you need. You're going to get a bunch of messages about existing media entries that will be deleted if you do this. We're going to go ahead and ignore those to overwrite it because we're going to add that information back in later. And now on that network group screen, they should both show as active, right? Then you're going to copy media information back from the file into the database, and now you've got your system A and system B media information on both systems. Okay. If you do a work-mead BRM, you can actually show tapes from both systems. It will default to tapes owned by the system you're on, unless you put in some sort of qualifier for you want all expired tapes. It'll show you all the expired tapes. Okay. Now both systems can see expired tapes from both systems, and it'll pick it up. So system B is going to say, hey, there's an expired tape. I need to use it. It's going to go grab it. It's going to say, oh, system A used to own this. It's going to send a little message to system A, say, hey, are you sure this is expired? System A is going to go, yep, that's expired. It's good. System B is going to go, great, claim it, change it to a system B tape now, and use it, and it's going to go. As long as both systems are up and running, that'll work. If you have one system that's going into restricted state save, this communication can still work one way over a restricted TCP line if you set it up, so that it can still use tapes from system A, even though system B is restricted, right? But only if the second system's not restricted. If they're both running restricted state saves at the same time, they can't communicate that way. You just got to make sure that the system is balanced where they're not trying to talk to each other, okay? There is a command to balance media volumes between networked systems. You run that, and it's going to take all the expired tapes and split them up and rename them so that the system has their own scratch pool, okay? But as long as at least one of the systems is up and running, it can go and communicate. Okay, so we were originally going to live demo and show everything. Unfortunately, due to a thunderstorm and other issues, we had the system that I have networking set up on is not available today. So we're going to go ahead and skip that. I tried setting it up on one of our other systems, but part of that problem is that it's set up as a test system for customers, so the networking is specifically set up not to communicate well. So I'm sorry I won't be able to do a live demo. However, these slides take you through everything you need to do that. Plus, you've got the documentation right here if you need to reference anything. And you are more than welcome to email me if you have any questions about networking. Okay. Okay, so the next step we're going to talk about is I talked about that restricted state save. That's where you're getting your full system, your OS, everything saved. And there's a couple ways to do that. Let me bring up the system here. All right, so when you want to do a restricted state save, you need to have either this save sys option enabled to let you know that it's going to be, to let BRMS know it's going to be a restricted state save. Okay. And there's a couple different ways that you can do it. When you submit your backup, backup BRM. So when you say that I want to do a star system save, how are you going to run it? Are you going to run it from here, or are you going to submit it? So there's two options, or four options. You can run it from this interactive screen. If you try to run a restricted state save from interactive, it's going to tell you, nope, can't do it. You can't run a restricted state save from an interactive connection. Okay. If you're on the console, it'll let you do that with a no. Okay. Star console right here, that allows you to submit your job to the BRMS console. Okay. The BRMS console is a job that sits on your console. It looks like this. So this is my HMC connection. From this side, you can see it in active jobs here. I've got this program up. It submits your backup to here. And then as the backup's running, you can log on to the console and you can see it'll send up a couple of commands once it's past the save sys portion. So you can see where it is on your user libraries or your IFS, and you can watch it go. The cool thing from this part is when you're running a restricted state save, you can break into the system. Like you can do an escape request, system escape, right? System message, break in and do something if there's a problem with the backup. Like for example, one of the most frequent ones I've had happen is that they forgot to swap out tapes and there's no tapes available for the restricted state. So I can go in using the system message, get in there, add the tape, and then come back to here. You can also, from here, you have the F9, you can access command line. It will make you say, okay, you have to prove that you have the authority to do this. So this is under my user profile, and I have that access. Normally, I recommend your user profile that sits here be one like backup that multiple people can access if needed, that you have a password saved or something like that. But it gives me a command line where I can go and I can do what I need to do and then get back out of here, and now my backup can resume running. The other way to do a restricted state backup is to do a controlling subsystem backup. We talked about that a little yesterday if you weren't here. Basically, you just submit your backup to Q control. You have no console and no access, and it'll run your restricted state for you. If you want more details about that version, go ahead and watch the webinar from yesterday. Okay. All right. So it's really simple to run your restricted state saves with those options. The only other thing is, I wanted to show you, is when you have these, if you're going to do something like you want to do PTFs, so you're going to do a full system save first and then you want to do PTFs, but you don't want the system to come back up, you do a 9 on there for subsystems process. And you see here it's got everything and it's going to restart. You change that to star no, it'll run your restricted state backup, and then it'll just sit in the console. It won't bring anything back up. It'll stay restricted. This is really, really useful for many things. I use it mainly for when I'm doing PTFs to keep the system from coming back up. It used to, before that option existed, we used to have to create a special startup program that didn't start anything. But now we can just use the subsystems to process option there. Okay, and that is everything with the restricted state saves. Real quick glance through there. All right, I'm going to start going a little bit faster here because I've noticed I caught my time.
Always hard with advanced topics, Sarah.
Yep, it is. It's really easy to get caught in there. So.
Yep.
Okay, one of the #1 things we do with backups is we want to monitor that and make sure that they're getting what we want them to get, that they're running. The main things we can look at is the display log BRM, display message for your backup or whatever you named your message queue for your backups. And it can show you a lot of different information. I know there is, you can use those exit points in your control group to send out messages or emails to let you know, hey, backup starting, hey, backup finished, right? Those are all really good things to do. There's some other monitoring software that can take through there. But if you don't have the monitoring software, I just want to show you a couple of things that you can look at that come with BRMS. So when we do display log BRM, if you just do the default, it's going to show you just today's stuff, right? Obviously, we've got some errors here because I was trying to get BRMS working or networking working on here to show you, but that didn't work out. All right, you can change the date up here and look at whatever day you want. It's going to give you the whole day, right? So here I can show you my daily one has started, right? It's going to start saving. It does my security, my configuration. Okay, it's omitting my stuff. Here it's running through, it's saving all my things. Looks good. I'm happy. I get down, okay, great. Full complete, no errors. Good news. Now I'm going to save my IFS. I've got some cannot saves. All right, these are not errors. This is the allow save is set to no, so these cannot be saved. You can either omit these directories from your backup, so it doesn't even attempt to backup, or you can go in and there's a way in BRMS to set it so that you no longer get these messages, because these type of messages don't cause an error message on the backup. Okay. And there's a lot of them, so I'm gonna scroll down, get through them all. Okay. All right, however, these errors that I'm seeing now, these are not helpful errors. This is object was in use. That was like on that error log I showed you. I've got logs that can't be saved because they're in use at the time I'm trying to back them up. This is where I'd go in, I'd look at those, say, okay, do I need those for recovery or not? If not, I'm going to put them in the Q-link omit and get rid of them. And this is where the errors come in. This cannot use object because it's in use will cause an error message. And then that in turn will cause the backup to complete with errors. Okay. So the which we don't want. We want our backups to complete successfully with no errors. I wanted to show you on, let's see, was it 12? I ran it. I had a save. Okay, was it here? Yep, not authored. Okay, so here is an interesting one where I had scheduled the backup to run through the advanced job scheduler. I did not give the advanced job scheduler user authority to backup. And we ran into a problem of that user profile is not authorized to save this library. So it failed. Okay, so setting up a user profile to run all your backups that has the appropriate authority, like we talked about with networking, really helps a lot. So make sure that that's there. Okay, and then if you display message queue,
an extra Q on the end there. Get rid of that.
oh,
Oh, sorry. It should be DSP MSG. You had a Q, not an extra. You don't need the Q.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
DSP.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Live demos.
All right.
It's always fun.
Yep. All right. Well, there's nothing in here. This got cleaned out. So
Okay.
normally there is a lot of information in here about like your save while active checkpoints. Okay. You said
And
it.
timing wise, we got about 5 minutes. So.
Yep. Okay. We're gonna scoot. All right. Quality backup real quick. You look at this top of your recovery report. It tells you which objects are not saved. So make sure you're reviewing those and seeing if those are actually necessary, because at ODARC 30, you don't want to be saying, oh crap, I needed those and now they're not saved, right? All these libraries that were not included in the report, not the sign of a quality backup. Ultimately, the best way to test it is to test your backup. run a recovery test. That'll test your backup better than anything else you can do, any other monitoring you can do, okay? It's so important I put the slide in here twice. Test your backups, okay? SQL services, there's a bunch of them available. There's a full list of options there at that website. You can customize them to your needs. All of this is stuff that you can read. I'm gonna sneak through because we did run short on time. I apologize for that. These are the most common calls I use. And they just show me what tapes are available and things like that. And if my saves were complete or not. There's something really cool with the subscription-based BRMS license, and that's that all those SQL servers have created a GUI again. We have a GUI.
Yes.
So they took it out with the old navigator and they brought it in. And I'm switching side, and this is just a little demo that Tom and Fortra have provided. Tom, did you want to say anything about this one?
Yeah, just a couple things. One, this is, it's integrated in. You can see in the upper left-hand corner next to where it says IBM BRMS, you can get at the SQL, you can switch systems. So if you're in a network type environment, like Sarah was showing you earlier, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming you still have to configure the network through green screen commands. I'm not sure that you can do that in the GUI. But we can definitely find that out. But this is just an example of being able to copy the SQL that's behind the scenes if you want and put it in somewhere else. So this video will run for a few minutes while this goes on. And you were talking about recovery and restore and testing, and it just reminds me. I had a call just yesterday, Sarah, with a customer, a partner, and they said they had 5 or 6 customers of theirs that they're managing that had ransomware attacks on IBMI. So backups, the ability to restore from IBMI is well documented. People are very successful. We just need to make sure we back things up. Not sure if our video has paused or what here, but it might have. So let's just, we don't have time to play the whole video there today. For some reason, it locked up and stopped on us, but this is just showing you that SQL and those things. And then it will go through the networking piece in a little bit, but it's pretty clean, looks easy to operate. I think Tom here's the network piece. I think it's just really nice for a lot of you. And I think one of the other things that was missing that was it the object list omits before that they weren't available. That's now in the GUI too. So that's all come back. It is in BR2 though. You do have to upgrade to the BR2 version. So let's move on from this, and because we are 2 minutes from final thoughts from Sarah.
Yep, that's just that plan your recovery first and test it. And BRMS is an incredibly powerful and helpful tool when it's configured and monitored correctly.
Yep. So, and again, we have a lot of great questions, Sarah, so maybe we will hang on over the top of the hour. I do have one polling question I'll throw out there again. If you want to contact Sarah, let us know. We'll get your email over to her. I'd like to talk about BI data access needs on IBMI, HADR concerns, as we said earlier. Robot HA is a nice fit for BRMS. We have people that are running, Robot HA production side to a target side, and they're doing their backups over on the target side because of HADR, and they're doing a BRMS over there. Of course, document management, and then cybersecurity, any kind of cybersecurity concerns, we're here to help you out. We'll let you fill that out. Sarah, I'm going to hit, have you had a chance to look at any of the questions?
Yep, I'm looking at them right now.
Maybe I'll let you tackle the ones that you feel comfortable with. Yep. I took care of a couple.
Yep, I see that. So, oh, yep, that one had an answer on it already.
Can you run a secondary backup in Q control while you're running the save sys?
No.
I would think not, because of the restricted state, right?
Correct, and actually, you can't run. You shouldn't run 2 BRMS backups at the same time, because they both use the BRMS database, right? So you have to do one or another. If you have 2 things that have to go at the same time or close, really just use those lists and that ability to link it to kind of step it through what's being saved when. Because they're both trying to use the BRMS database to update that media information if you're running them both at the same time. So it's just really, and they can lock each other, and they can, I have seen systems where they had 2 backups running at the same time, and they were both locked because they were both trying to update Q user BRM, and we had to end them abnormally in order to get them out of the system. So yeah, you don't want to run 2 BRMS backups at the same time.
Yeah. Hey, can you pop to the next slide?
Yep, absolutely.
I think that's, yeah, go ahead and bring up another question.
Okay.
Oh, and I should just say, this is everything Fortra. If you don't know this, we are an enterprise cybersecurity company besides IBMI, automation, BRMS, PowerHA, RDI, and all those things that we do with the robot, PowerTech, SQL, document management brands that we have. But anything cybersecurity these days, from penetration testing to monitoring your entire enterprise, we do from a cybersecurity perspective. Give us a call. All right, Sarah, back over to the next question.
Yep. Okay, so my next question on here is, was told by IBM not to use star exit for running external programs. Okay, so it looks like what you were doing is you were saving your recovery report to the IFS using an exit point. That problem is, this was likely to do the same problem of, I was just talking about with 2 backups at the same time. You were trying to save part of BRMS with that recovery report, and then during a save that was running. That's kind of where that doesn't work. The other thing with exit points is that BRMS does not check for completion. It doesn't check for errors, and you can't have a program in there that runs that requires input. Okay, so those exit points are great for like monitoring little things or kicking off batch jobs, but they're not good for anything where you would need some sort of response at all. Okay, and you really want to keep that separate. Okay.
And you probably want to do mon message CPF 000, right? So that if it does get an error, it just continues on, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There are a couple of those types of exit programs that will cause the BRMS backup to just end, but most of them, it just ignores the fact that there's an error with that command or program. So
A couple questions on the BRMS GUI. You have to go back out to your business partner, right? And to order it. Yep. Go to your business partner to order it and ask for BRMS 2, not 1.
Yeah, it's not, the GUI is not going to be available on the old licensing. So SQL slides, Joyce, we're going to email them out. They'll be part of, you'll have access to it as a handout. BR2 cannot be installed with BR1, that's correct.
Very good.
So let's see, where did it, okay, so Barry, for when you're in a restricted state in the console, and you find out you don't have enough tapes, one of the things that I do is I have my system escape menu. I have configured it for myself so that I actually can do work. I can't just see things. So I will say hi to Jim. So he's so I can go in and I can actually do a work active job, not just a display. And that's where I'll be able to go in and affect the tapes. If you're not, if you don't have that, when you do a system request, you can at least respond to the system operator message that says, hey, there's a problem, I need a response. You can end the backup. And then once the backup's ended, you can go add the tape back in, do what you need to do, and then restart the backup from there. Okay, that's how you would handle it if you don't tweak the system attention menu.
Sarah, do you want to bring up your contact information again too, please?
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's on the next slide. Oh, 1 too far.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. And yeah, and just as a note, don't mess with the system attention thing if you really don't know what you're doing, because it can cause some issues. You don't want to give people access to that who shouldn't have it. Let's see, what else do we have?
Can you run an object backup and an IFS backup at the same time? Probably same issue, right?
Yeah, it's the same issue. It's you can't run.
Can't
You
do
don't want to
concurrent
run
type
two
saves?
BRMS jobs at the same time,
Okay,
right?
interesting.
If you want to save a backup and an IFS object at close to the same time, just put them in their own list or their own control group, right? Just run that control group to get those two things. I think I've got everything. If I've missed your question, I will definitely get back to you via email, or you can reach out to me. My contact information is right there. I know you should be able to access Tom. I think his information is somewhere if you have any questions for him.
LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn. I'm a big user of that. But anyways, I want to thank you, Sarah, so much on behalf of Fortra for joining us today, sharing your expertise, obviously based on the comments. It's been very valuable. Maybe down the road we'll have you again. Maybe we'll have a third, more advanced session on BRMS or something. Seems like there might be a need for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as customers, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on future webinars. We'll see you at Common and many other places around the globe. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.